Good morning. My name is Mark Lindert. I'm heading the waste management department of the city of Düsseldorf. Düsseldorf is located at the Rhine River, so that's in the very western part of Germany, near the border to the Netherlands, for example. Düsseldorf has about 630,000 inhabitants. Last year, we collected about 14,230 tons of glass, which is about 23 kilograms per inhabitant in this year. And an additional information is that in our residual waste analysis, we also find another about 7 or 7.5 kilograms of glass bottles in the residual waste bins. So there's about 1/4 of glass packaging that is not put into these containers and is therefore not recycled, but put into our waste incineration plant. As a municipality, we are responsible for collection and disposal of most types of waste. For example, for the residual waste or for bio-waste, there are special regulations for packaging. There are also special regulations, for example, for electronic waste. But the system as a whole, waste management, is something that municipalities in Germany are responsible for. And are also working for themselves, collecting fees from the public to finance all this system. So we have a strong position, I think, as municipality for the system for waste management as a whole, with some exceptions where it's becoming a little bit complicated, like in this place. In Germany, the collection of used glass, meaning mostly bottles, is in the hands of so-called system operators. This is due to the German Packaging Act that defines a kind of enhanced producer responsibility for the producers of glass or for the users of glass packaging. And the collection and the financing of this system is organized by so-called system operators. We have about 11 system operators for this packaging collection in Germany. They have to coordinate their work with the municipality, as it is shown on the right-hand side on this slide. When you buy something, let's say a bottle of wine in the shop, you will not only pay for the wine, but also for the disposal or for the recycling of this bottle. Pay to the manufacturers, and they pay to so-called system operators. They collect money to organize the recycling of the glass in the whole of Germany. And they have agreements with the municipalities, which means which system operator is active in which city, for example, and also there's a financial contribution of these system operators to the municipalities for the use of collecting places and also for doing the public relations, for informing the people in the city about how this system is working. And the system operators themselves put in charge and give orders to collecting companies to do this collecting in the city. So it's a little bit complicated. In Düsseldorf, we have about 710 places in the city where we collect, or where the system operators collect glass bottles. and they collect the glass in 3 colors: brown, clear, and green glass, which means that there's more than 2,100 containers in the city. Most of these containers are on the surface. I call these common containers, as you can see on the left-hand side in the photo. These containers are owned by the collection company. At 50 places, we do have underground containers, and these containers are kind of a building set inside the street, and these containers belong to the city. So we invested to get these containers in the city. It's just a little bit of good looking, or the attempt to at least do not have this kind of ugly look of the usual containers. When we are collecting glass in the city on these 660 places, we have to be careful about the noise that throwing glass into the containers produces. So there are some regulations, especially or everywhere in Germany. The distance between these containers to dwelling houses must be in a minimum 12 meters. The use of these containers is restricted to the daily hours between 7 a.m. 7 p.m. And on the inside of these containers, as you can see on the photo on the right-hand side, there's some noise insulation, especially at the top of these containers, to get to reduce the noise that develops when you throw a bottle inside. We do a lot of information about how these containers shall be used, when they shall be used, and which which glasses can be put into and which not, which you can see in the middle, on the photo in the middle. People try to put porcelain things into these containers, but it's just for glass, so we need to inform the people. So you can see a little bit how it looks underground. The glass containers have a volume of 3 cubic meters under the street level, but you only see these 3 shafts to put the bottles inside. For these containers, we had to extend our agreements with the company. So we own these containers. They are fixed in the street, and the collecting company pay rent for the use of these underground containers, so that we can do the maintenance of these containers, something like that. So it makes it even more complicated to deal with this. We have an agreement and financial agreement with the system operators, and we also have an agreement with the collecting company. The next slide shows that it's kind of complicated or laborious to install this kind of underground containers. Of course, you will need to have the place in the public street, and you need some free place underground. It's not possible to build such a kind of container when there's a sewage pipe underground, for example. You can't cut a sewage pipe. And we also don't want to cut the roots of trees growing in the street. So it's very limited and complicated to build such a station, especially in the inner part of Düsseldorf. It's easier to do it when you have a new area which is planned completely new with new buildings, and you plan the whole street as a new thing. Then it's more easy to invest into such a thing, but it's kind of expensive. One station will cost about 100,000 to 120,000 euros. Yeah, it's important to have no cables above the containers, because these cranes will otherwise cut down. And it's a little bit tricky to get the pavement in the right direction, so it's important to find the right level. These platforms of the container stations will be a few centimeters above the usual pavement level, because otherwise rainwater would drop and flush into this shaft. In the photo in the middle, we can see how it looks when such a crane vehicle lifts one of these containers out of the shaft. And you have an imagination about the dimension of this underground container on this photo. On the right-hand side, you can see that when the container is drawn out of the shaft, there's going to be a platform that rises to the top level of this shaft so that nobody can fall inside. On the left-hand side, you can see that also these containers have a little bit of noise protection inside. So there's a foam-coated chute on the top, and we will find also coated chains in the inside to slow down the bottles when they fall inside this thing. And on the other hand, it's a little bit of noise protection because the container is underground. So it's easier to use such a kind of container in the densely populated areas and the densely built areas in the middle of the city. As far as we have the means to influence this glass collection, we will try that, of course. Indeed, it's complicated in this relationship to the system operators. They don't want to spend more money. We would like them to empty the containers more often. We have the task to give information to the public and want to motivate our inhabitants, our people, to do a better separation of recyclable waste as a whole, not only of glass. And as a city, we also have a waste management concept that at the very moment concentrates a little bit more on a separate collection of paper and bio waste, because we are responsible for these types of waste for ourselves. As far as glass is concerned, of course, we would like to have the material out of our residual waste bins, because as a municipality, we have to pay for the mixed waste, and our inhabitants pay for the incineration, in this case, of the mixed waste, and they also pay for the incineration of glass, which is nonsense because glass couldn't be incinerated. But it's not so easy to meet these goals together with the system operators. It would be necessary for them to empty the glass containers more often. That is something that we want of the system operators. For them, it would mean that they will have to send their lorries more often, and that costs more money. So it's a kind of a struggle which we are actually working on. The environmental ministry of the Federal Republic of Germany will have to do more, because they have their own special influence on these system operators. So as municipalities alone, we do have some problems in this field, and indeed, one may say that it's too complicated in Germany. At least it's my my feeling and my experience that we did this too complicated.